this whole quarterback situation as well. It's not the right time for this team, and I just don't see it. Let's jump on our next topic. The Rams play on Monday Night Football in Week 15 against the Packers. The Packers had a bye week in Week 14, and the Rams, it couldn't have worked out much better for them in the sense of timing. They play on Thursday night. They get a bit of a few extra days off than you would usually have in this whole situation when you're facing the team coming off a bye. And that's going to be an interesting game. It's not the biggest story. The biggest story is a guy that we didn't really get time in terms of timing of last week to talk about too much. Baker Mayfield. Whenever I seen that the date for the Munich game leaked out on the Munich embassy, I sort of bet my chances and booked a flight, and I came up trumps. And Baker Mayfield done the exact same last week. He was waived by the Panthers on Monday. Now, I believe that Baker forced that and forced his hand, and I'm sure that was what happened. He booked a flight to LA that afternoon. The Rams got him up the next day, and the second the Rams brought him in, Mark, there was talk about, well, he's got a playbook. He's on the flight, and he booked the flight early, and it came up trumps for him. A really, really interesting, albeit not eventful game on the whole on that Thursday Night Football scene. The Rams sitting 16-3 down, and Baker comes in and leads the team to 2 touchdown drives. The drive at the end with a 23-yarder to Van Jefferson to win it. Talk about a guy that needed that. I don't think anybody needed that more than Baker Mayfield. I guess the question this week is, do you believe the hype, Mark, around Baker Mayfield at the moment? And I would love to sit here personally and say that I do. I don't. I just don't. I don't think he can come in. And granted, if he's going to play one team, the Packers at the minute, who have struggled this season in certain games, could be one to play with. But I think Baker needs a lot of work. I don't think he's ever recovered from that serious injury that he had in 2020. And I just don't see how long term it could be an issue, or it could be an answer for the Rams. But look, I am here to be converted. So do you believe in the hype of Baker Mayfield this year?
No. No, everyone made a big deal out of, he came in on 2 days' notice and he went out and balled. Give me a break. Like, look, it can work out. I'm just not saying that I'm buying in after 2 days or whatever. Now we are a week after. Like, what happened there seems to be quite simple. The playbook was so dumbed down that an NFL team, it was like, at the same time, the Las Vegas Raiders who you're playing is a first-year head coach. It's not like you're going against like this super juggernaut of a defense. So they did get caught on the bounce. I saw Bill Barnwell put out a tweet. That final play of the game was a 4 verticals Madden kind of play. Like, it's from a video. It was so simple, and just a busted coverage is what allowed it to Van Jefferson. That if this was to go over the whole course of a season, such a simple offense, it'd be found out after a couple of weeks. Now, in a couple of weeks' time, they play Denver, which is a competent defense. Let's see what he can do against that. Now, when you look forward at the whole schedule, it's not like they have the Packers, the Broncos, the Chargers, the Seahawks. I think the Chargers defense could pose them some problems, but I think what happened last week, as fun as it was, I think that you do have to weigh up that, like, there was no tape on them for the Raiders to really look at. They didn't know who was going to be in the game. I'm not going to say it was a bounce that they got, or a bump that they got having a quarterback in, but like, that's often talked about when you don't know what your Desmond Ridder is going to look like. How do you prepare for that on a short week on Thursday Night Football? It was a fun storyline. Him with Sean McVay, I said this 2 weeks ago on our review or preview, I forget which podcast, but when we first started speculating when he got released, we said, look, if anyone is going to make a quarterback out of him, let's see him with a Shanahan or McVay with a sincere, decent offense. I don't think that's what we saw last week. What we saw last week was a fun storyline. I don't think there's anything more than that.
I fully agree with that, and like, it was great to see for the crack element of it. And by God, that game needed that, because it wasn't going to be the greatest. I think everybody picked the Raiders, and fair play to for Baker for doing that. Michaela, it's an interesting situation, because Mark's talked about the schedule that the Rams have going through the last few weeks of the season, and it's not as if they're playing for a draft pick, because as it stands, the Lions have their number 4 draft pick. So as a Broncos fan who potentially will be picking second in the draft if it wasn't for Seattle at the minute. I feel that pain. I know you're a big believer in Baker. I think it would take a lot for him to come back to his form surely that he had with Cleveland. I mean, really for me that injury has took a lot of his movement and honestly his confidence away. But look, I am happy for the guy last week.
Yeah, everyone knows I'm a big Baker Mayfield fan. He was one of the reasons why I started supporting Cleveland, but not that I support Cleveland now because of the Watson trade. But Baker was the reason why I did pick them, and I don't think people give Baker enough credit for what he's done in the NFL. Like he came in his rookie season to like a Browns team that had like lost all their games the year before, and he broke the rookie touchdown record for a quarterback, surpassing Peyton Manning and Russell Wilson. And I don't think anyone gave him enough credit for that. And when Herbert did it in his rookie season, everyone was like, "Oh yeah, Herbert like is amazing. Like he's going to be up there with Mahomes and all this stuff." And then,
Social media quarterback Justin
so
Herbert.
he's not a social media quarterback. He's
I'm
unbelievable.
joking. I'm joking.
I know you're joking, but Herbert, like the Chargers haven't done anything in the playoffs. And then you look at Mayfield, and he brought the Cleveland Browns to their first playoff since like 2004 and 2020, and then their first win since 1994. And you have to look at like he had some good stats that year as well. He got over 20 touchdowns. He threw maybe a little bit too many picks, but you have to remember you got over 20 touchdowns, and the Browns were a run heavy offense. They obviously have Nick Chubb, who's arguably, I think, the best in the NFL consistently as a running back. But I think, yeah, like I said, I think that people don't give him enough credit. I think you have to remember as well, he's had like 5 head coaches in the last 5 years, and none of them have been good. Like I didn't rate Matt Rule like coming into this season, so I didn't think Mayfield was going to perform spectacularly with him. And he finally gets a decent, like an offensive genius in Sean McVay. And he didn't have an amazing stat game. He only threw 1 touchdown and he only got like 185 yards. But the fact that he was able to lead a really poor Rams team to a win and kind of do what Tom Brady did, and he had no touchdowns and he had 1 minute 45 seconds left on the clock, and he won the game for the Raiders. And if you see the reaction on social media, everybody loved it. All of the NFL players, you had Watt, you had Jerry Jeudy, you had all these players congratulating him and being happy for him, that I was actually surprised about, because I thought nobody liked Mayfield after the Odell Beckham Jr. incident. But I would say I'm buying into the hype a little bit, not completely, because I know as an ex-Browns fan that Mayfield can be really inconsistent, but I think there was reasons why he was inconsistent. Again, mainly because of the head coaches that he had to go through, and also that he played through injury last year. But I'm buying the hype a little bit. Hopefully, if he plays really well in the next couple of games for the Rams, I think he'll hopefully have a chance at getting a starting quarterback role somewhere else, because I don't think he'll stay on as a backup at the Rams, because, like you said, Michael, he did force his way out of the Carolina Panthers. He was the third string quarterback, and I know Mayfield is not into that, so he forced his way out, which I don't blame him. And so I think he's playing to be a starting quarterback for the last chance next year.
I agree with you, but then I realize he's in the LA market, and I think he'll be a happy man sitting on the bench in Inglewood. If he does get a chance, I'm intrigued to see what he can do. I believe in him in the sense of I want him to play well, and I fully get what you're saying there as well. Mark, you have something to add?
I have to say though, man, the head button players with helmets has to stop.
That was strange.
I hate it because, one of the reasons that it flamed out in Cleveland in particular, and you're talking about the Odell Beckham incident, Michaela, was because chemistry seems to be a massive problem with him and other players. That maybe it's that he gets found out after his first season. And, if we're giving him credit, then we have to give Carson Wentz credit for what he used to do in Philadelphia. So I kind of find it hard to give him a lot of credit. But that damn headbutt thing, I think, first of all, it looks stupid. Second of all, it could give him a concussion the way that he's doing it. And third of all, I just don't believe it. He didn't know those guys' names and he was going up to them headbutting.